Most of you know now, this is our 8th edition of the Talent Waste Show, and we are on a mission to find out if talent waste exists through research, statistics, our brilliant guests each week on the Talent Waste Show. So what is talent waste? Talent waste affects organisations across multiple industries. It occurs when employees leave an organisation prematurely or regrettably, as Richard and I were just talking about before, due to that business not being able to retain them. Some of the key statistics that the Office of National Statistics have actually published is incredible. Between 30 and 45% of employees leave organisations within their first year. And the CIPD published reports to suggest that a bad hire costs in excess of £12,000 a year for each person leaving. So some huge amounts of business inefficiencies. And we're on a mission to find out whether or not talent waste actually exists. Last time out, we had the seriously impressive Manuel Heischlinger from Samsara. We talked all things talent and how important things like communication can be in leading teams, being open and transparent with employees, giving uncomfortable feedback, or having, as Samsara call it, courageous conversations are crucial for the success of any type of team. The show goes out live on Crowdcast and, of course, LinkedIn. So most of you will be watching via them two channels right now. So please interact and ask questions to myself and to Richard as well. You can also catch up via YouTube and as a podcast. We're now delighted to say that we're all over Spotify, Anchor, Radio Public, and of course the Pocket Cast as well. So you can't get enough of the Talent Waste Show. You can find us on the socials, on Insta, on LinkedIn and Twitter at Phoenix51. You can also follow me as well at Lee McQueen or Lee.McQueen, and check us out, phoenix51.io. But nonetheless, let's get to why we're here today. Today, my guest is the epic Richard Matthews. Richard has had a stellar career so far in talent acquisition and leadership, not only on the recruitment side with the likes of Wilson HG, but also client side with Royal Bank of Scotland, and now being the head of talent of the Cooperative Bank. And we are very, very excited to have him with us. I'm delighted to spend the next 30 minutes, or let's be honest, it might end up being about 45 minutes with Richard Matthews. Richard, welcome to the Talent Waste Show. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Lee. Thank you very much for having me. In true Northern style, it's just started raining. Thunder and lightning has just started. So, yeah.
What can you do?
Welcome to the North. Welcome to the North.
Brilliant stuff. Well, look, I mean, as I said before, we are on a mission to try and find out whether or not there is substance, if you like, in my claim that there is another global pandemic going on here, which is talent waste. And actually, why me talking about it? I want to have experts to talk about it, and there's no better expert out there at the moment in talent acquisition than yourself, Richard. So delighted to have you on. For those who haven't met you before, just tell us a little bit about you and who you are and what you do and the kind of experience that you've had.
Brilliant. Yeah, thanks, Lee, and thanks for that introduction. So I guess in terms of kind of background, I've worked in the agency side, RPO, as you mentioned, and now kind of in-house in several roles as well. So my kind of background goes back to a traditional kind of London recruitment agency, a well-known brand at the time called Jocelyn Rowe, which were investment management, asset management kind of specialists on my side, and seriously fortunate to work for that firm. So many of their kind of values I kind of carry forward today. Hopefully, I'll talk a lot more than I normally do on today's show, but generally around kind of listening, really kind of taking the time to really understand clients and candidates and people in general. That's why we're all in this industry, because we actually enjoy talking to, meeting with, whether it be virtually or face to face for a beer or whatever, of people. So careers transitioned from there, moved up to the sunny northwest, and then got approached by one of my clients at the time, RBS, to come in and work for them. First in-house role, really kind of different, and loved working for RBS. Such a good organisation. Was going through real challenges at the time, as 90% of financial services firms were.
Yeah.
And then obviously transitioned to the RPO side, which I think gave me it's interesting to go from in-house to RPO. I think there's so much that you take with you. You really understand what what kind of clients are kind of looking for and all about. You understand that external view and how important it is, whether it's agency or RPO. And now, obviously, just really fortunate to be, I don't count myself as, as a kind of an employee of the bank or anything else. I'm a custodian of our kind of talent acquisition function. So I'm looking after it for the next person that will follow me, and hopefully we'll continue on the upward trajectory that we're on.
I absolutely love that. I've never heard that before, a custodian of the talent acquisition function. I absolutely love that. And actually, it brings us probably onto our first talking point, really, and getting into that kind of talent waste piece. We were just talking before in the green room before we come on live on air, viewers, about, is there another pandemic, and does talent waste exist? And you were telling me, Richard, that you've got some really good processes in place already at the Cooperative Bank. But just talk to me a little bit about kind of how you manage that, and just give some of the viewers and some of the listeners an insight into how you've managed to kind of retain, if you like, such a high number of staff in year one.
Yeah, so I think the talent waste does absolutely exist. It's such a great topic, and I think not only have we got kind of COVID going on and candidates adjusting and hiring managers adjusting to a new kind of working life, but we have Brexit. There's so many kind of industry changes at the moment which make it really interesting. Now, from a candidate perspective, I think one of the things we do really well, and when I say we, I mean the kind of recruitment team, is and hiring managers, because everyone has a part to play in it. I would say we're fortunate, but also we've really kind of cultivated a really strong EVP. It's so important. We as an organisation have we are the original kind of ethical bank. There's so much that we stand by, and those values do emanate throughout the organisation. They're not just a marketing tagline. If you think about things like things that are happening in the kind of industry, and if you think about everyone kind of talking about waste in general, actually we've been kind of beyond carbon neutral since 2007. So you've got it's just such a strong brand from an ethical perspective. When we're looking at the kind of candidate side of things, when we're looking at kind of attrition and where we're up to, we've measured it because it's such an important statistic. We want great people to join us. We want great people to feel that they can bring their best selves to work. We want them to feel supported, and I think actually hiring managers during interview process do a great job of actually kind of explaining that, the day-to-day kind of field and approach. And when we're going through a kind of a recruitment process, my team are brilliant and fantastic in terms of really having detailed conversations. You've got to be authentic. You've got to be honest around challenges that you face as an organization, whether it be technology or product or culturally, whatever it may be. So I think that honesty and transparency and authenticity has to ring through everything that you do. Now, in terms of kind of statistics, we measure attrition. We have as you kind of mentioned earlier on, Lee, a regretted leaver approach, which you bring people in, you take so much time. This is important because it's someone's life. It isn't just an employee or a colleague. It's someone's working pattern. They're buying their first house, or they're starting a family, saving for a wedding, whatever it may be, and actually their working life and enjoying it has a big impact on people around them. So I think when we're looking at attrition, we measure it in terms of a regretted leaver. Our target for this year is 13.5% across the organisation. We're currently tracking at 9%, so it's great. We're obviously doing something right, but I think that's when you look at the organisation as a whole. There's some key hotspots where attrition is higher, and I guess they're the challenges that we're facing at the moment, is looking at those.
Them key points of where attrition, I think you're going to get that in all businesses, aren't you? Your experience would tell you that, and your wider team as well. But do you think COVID's had an impact on? I'm not going to ask you, do you think COVID's had an impact on business? Because of course it has. It's affected the whole world. But do you think it's had an impact on the regrettable leavers? Do you think people are kind of their staying power is because of the core values of cooperative bank that you've just talked about, and actually how you measure them people coming in? Or do you think COVID's also have an impact on people not leaving, or people not looking to join the cooperative bank? Has there been an effect on COVID, do you think, during the last kind of 14, 15 months?
Oh, there absolutely has. I think any organisation would have felt it in terms of COVID. I think we're probably at, obviously I've kind of worked through, the Lehman Brothers crashes, other financial kind of crises. I think this is probably the most challenging time from a candidate perspective that we face in the industry.
Yeah, I agree.
You look at even kind of, virtual interviews, from a technology perspective, there isn't really the commitment or buy-in from a candidate side. You don't need to put as much personal commitment in to attend an interview, to put that suit on, get ready, put your makeup on, get ready to kind of go out there. Obviously everything's kind of done virtually at the moment, so you can easily, you don't have to take time off work to go and interview. There isn't any of that kind of awkwardness. You can kind of fit it in around your day job. So I think we're certainly seeing, this feels kind of industry wide from kind of peers that I'm talking to, but we're certainly at a point where there seems to be less candidate commitment. So you've got to move fast. You've really got to hook them in. You've got to have a compelling story on why someone does want to join you. I think the other interesting thing from a COVID perspective, the great thing is it's opened up probably the UK market in terms of where people work. The flip side on that, in terms of operations or organisations like ourselves, which are predominantly northwest focused, but with hubs and locations around the UK, is our talent, our great talent that we have in digital spaces or other areas across the bank. Actually, they're getting targeted by everyone now. It's not just kind of local talent. And Manchester is a real hotbed. It's everywhere.
For everyone else, it's kind of opened up. So I suppose headhunting, or people opening up to different opportunities, like you say, that were just focused around a smaller catchment area, now UK wide or even global.
Absolutely. And then you kind of you look at the hiring manager process in terms of, and we've got some brilliant hiring managers that really convey what the bank stands for really, really well, and in an honest and transparent and authentic way. But when we're looking at, one of our key metrics that we also focus on is that time to offer. How long does it really take us to get the advert out there, go live with it, really try and hook people in there, try and do the kind of video interviews. Actually, the branding and everything we've kind of changed and we're trying to develop this year is also the video. Really trying to bring our role and our organisation to life. So industry standard is around 35 days time to offer in working days. We're currently tracking at 21.
This is easy, Richard, isn't it?
It absolutely. I wish it was. It's certainly easier than other things I've got going on in my life. But as we discussed before we came on, but I think when it's down to the team. It's down to team, hiring managers really moving quickly, really understanding the markets that we play in. So targeted approaches, really looking to get people in, move quickly. All those things that were super important before, but actually over the last 18 months, 2 years, we've probably had our fingers burnt. We've probably lost some great candidates in risk or finance or legal or wherever. And actually hiring managers have felt that. You add COVID on top of it, and they want to move quick. They want people in.
I mean, there's some of the statistics that you guys are running, and the fact that not only are they really impressive in terms of the statistics themselves, but actually the fact that you're tracking all of these key things as well is absolutely fundamental, isn't it? To getting the right team, the right process. Is if you know where you can improve, that's how you can improve. Would that be fair to say? So actually, that improvement becomes natural process in what you've got going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's imperative for. For me, I probably look at data way too much. But it's a balance between using technology and using the powers of technology, but not letting that rule you. We can't afford to, technology do everything for us in terms of, the candidate journey. There needs to be a manual intervention. It needs to be a really strong one. So I think, yes, we do it right, but it's the team, and we don't always get it right. So it's definitely not all rosy, but the desire is there from the team to do the best with it.
I completely agree. I mean, obviously you're talking to a man who's completely biased around data and insights. With our business, Phoenix 51, it's exactly what it does. But what we've steered away from specifically is making sure that there's AI that's making the decisions. What we actually want to do is make the humans still have the decisions, but actually to have better insights, better data insights, and that's where technology can help and support to make sure that we've got the better hiring decisions or line management decisions around our people, whether or not that's against their key values or their key behaviours or the key competencies per job role or overarching in the business that they're in. So that data and then data insights, that for me is a, I suppose it's almost like a basic requirement, and it frightens me actually when we talk about talent waste again. It frightens me that there's so many organisations out there that are still not utilising or using data and insights to make better informed decisions. And it's something that you guys took on really, really quickly, wasn't it? Really early.
Well, it definitely is. I mean, I think over the last year, hopefully, a lot of organisations are focused on it a lot more. It's it's imperative that you understand. I mean, how can you manage any kind of business, not just from a resourcing perspective, but you look at any business, you want to cut down on waste, you want to reduce what's going out, and you want to retain or bring in extra talent or extra kind of quality, and that works in the same way in the kind of financial side of things as well. You want less waste. I think one thing is making sure that it's not me that makes the I'm not the oracle in terms of making decisions in terms of technology and everything else. The team are heavily involved in that. Hiring managers feel that as well, because there's no point in utilizing technology if we don't understand it and we don't understand the decisions that it's making. So back to your point, Lee, in terms of AI, there needs to be that manual intervention and understanding, because a hell of a lot of time, I think it's too easy to fall back on stuff. And I think we need to understand what the AI is telling us. What that
is, and why it's made that, the clever algorithms or whatever it might be, but be able to, it's a little bit like, and I'm sure we'll get onto this as well, but psychometrics, so situational adjustment tests and personality profiling, and that's great, but if you don't know how to read the data, then it becomes quite a useless task. It's great to have them in there, but actually, why are you having them in there? What is it telling you? Is it a tool to be able to use when you're interviewing somebody? And actually, once you can read that data, then you can start to use that tool and utilize it. But at the end of the day, it's still the team or the human intervention that ends up making that decision. Now, I think there's such a huge amount of work now going on, probably over the last year, 18 months, probably longer, around diversity and inclusion and kind of that unconscious bias. I think the benefit of using AI-led technology is that actually there is no human bias, because the technology is kind of it's a 0 or a 1, right? To come back to the real basic form of data. But whereas actually using human interaction alongside technology, you can then start to track whether there is an issue with unconscious bias and then start to address that problem. So instead of eradicating it, you can start to address that problem. Lee, hiring manager, has hired 30 people over the last 3 months. He's always hired the same types of people. Right? We can see that pattern now. So let's have a conversation. Let's work out whether or not there is an issue there, and if there is, let's work it out. Does that make sense? Is that sort of how
it does?
Data.
Yeah, it does, and it's such a great point, because I think by using kind of AI and technology, and we do that in certain areas across the bank, actually, it probably opens us up to different talent pools as well. So you talked about kind of diversity, and when I'm kind of talking about it at the moment, it's it's a lot more around yes, we have to do everything correctly and need to be bringing in people from from every different kind of background and and everything else. Hi, Megan.
That was a surprise. That was Megan, just to come in and say hello. Hi, Meg. Megan, for everybody out there, Megan is my social media marketing person. So she's done a brilliant job, and she's just popped in to say hello. So forgive us, Richard.
Well, no, and a big thank you to Megan as well for the support she's provided me over the last kind of few days. So I think back to kind of I guess kind of AI. You can use the data to really highlight trends. Is there a different pool of candidates that's out there now? Can we let's just in terms of brass tacks, let's really take back. Do we early careers? Do we need a 2-1? Do we need a Red Brick University? We need to focus on social mobility.
Totally.
Because I think when we're looking at when you talk about kind of talent waste, and one of the key things I'm really kind of focused on in terms of kind of looking at, and I think as an industry we need to focus on more. It's probably less on skills, and it's much more on
attitude.
Coachability.
Yeah, attitude, meta skill.
Flexibility.
Yeah,
exactly. Huge.
Totally.
It's huge. And I think anything to a certain extent is kind of teachable or coachable, but someone's got to have the will to do it. They've got to want to learn, and you don't always, by wanting to learn, I don't always mean kind of learning to progress, but I mean learning for your own benefit. When I go back to the start of my kind of career at kind of Jocelyn Rowe, actually one of the things we did there and had some fantastic mentors, the likes of kind of Tom Forrest and obviously Nabila Sadiq, who's the kind of MD there at the time, actually homing down and really understanding what corporate actions were. What did it mean? What did risk mean? What did the technology mean? So I think, it's kind of, we've got to look at that coachability, that desire to learn, to understand, to really challenge things as well. And I think that's where ultimately you'll get to a better place.
I could not agree more with you. I think, that emerging talent piece is something that's been close to my heart for the last 10 years. I've been lucky enough to set up a business called Raw Talent 10 years ago. And that focused on that. We ripped up the resume. You talk about Red Brick Universities and 2-1s and that type of stuff. We ripped up the resume and we said to our clients, let's hire based on attitude and behavior and competency. What behaviors do you need in this job role? What attitude of individuals do you need within your teams, within your business? Let's focus on that, because actually, especially in an emerging talent world or early careers world, you can teach a lot of that, develop the other stuff. You can't teach desire. Sometimes we're working on an amazing project at the moment with Phoenix 51 and Raw Talent, two businesses actually at the same time, whereby empathy, compassion, it's a profession, it's a vocation of where they are in terms of their career, and these individuals have to have that. If they don't have that, you can't teach that. You can't teach to want to help somebody. It's a natural piece. Do you agree? So so I'm getting a bit on my soapbox for sure.
No, that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that is absolutely crucial. And that's one of the reasons why we started to look. We've got some questions coming in from LinkedIn. So we're LinkedIn Live. So thanks ever so much, everybody. David King mentions, totally agree with you earlier about candidate commitment. It's an all-time low. When you said that earlier, it's very tough at the moment with the commitment from candidates. And Rob Green is talking about the role of an ATS in the talent retention, how the right product can actually help you keep the best people. Again, talking about them insights that we've talked about. Hopefully we've covered your point off, Rob, and David, when we're talking about them insights and data points and really looking into that, not using them solely in making your decision, but using them insights and data to make better hiring decisions or better considered decisions. So I think that's, especially in that early careers or that emerging talent, we were very fortunate enough to have Rachel Barr on our very first show, the Talent Way show.
Yes.
I don't know if you know Rachel, but Rachel used to be the global head of resourcing for TPI Cap, and now she's the global talent director for SMBC Bank. And she talked. I worked with Rachel in the past, and she really changed the mindset and the way of hiring early careers within TPI Cap globally. I mean, we took this through the UK, through mainland Europe, through the Americas, and to the APAC region, and actually utilizing attitude, behaviours, and competency, and train for skill. And it worked brilliantly. So I totally agree with your philosophy around that.
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. It's great to hear it, and hearing kind of Rachel's comments on that kind of previous podcast, completely agree there. There's so much more to do, and we're just scratching the kind of tip of the iceberg there in terms of that change that we're seeing. So we're seeing it in terms of social mobility and kind of background, and the focus there is, I guess, taking it kind of really kind of on a basic level. If you've got a candidate who has had to work 3 jobs, has maybe got different stuff going on, has really is maybe a kind of first generation, in terms of kind of going to university or studying at the level they're at. God, it's just so impressive to then bring those people in and just watch everyone kind of fly once you kind of take away some of those kind of challenges that they're kind of facing. I think, we see it in terms of kind of grads and early career schemes, and I think the industry's doing a great job in terms of kind of changing there, which I think can only benefit everyone.
No, I completely agree. We said we wasn't going to mention this, so the viewers and listeners can work out which teams these are, but we share something common in football, myself and Richard, and it's quite interesting. When I use football as an analogy quite a lot in the work that I do and the work that we've got with emerging talent, the tech business, Things 51, when we're plugging in, is actually you're looking for a striker, and ultimately that striker wants to score goals. That individual wants to score goals. But even though you're looking for a striker and that individual needs to score goals, there's still a cultural element. Do they fit within the football club? Do they fit within the fabric of who you are or the style of play? This is exactly the same in business, is it not, Richard? In the sense of, you've got to understand the fabric of the business, the why, the purpose of who we are and what we're doing, so that actually we can start to find the right people, share the same values or share the same beliefs. My experience tells me that, when you find somebody that's you share the same passions or you share the same beliefs with, typically you're going to end up building a longer term relationship with that individual. Whether or not that's a business level, say a football level, dare I say a dating level. You think about the data, the insights. I've never used a dating app. I don't think I've needed to be fair. But that's.
I'm sure you don't, like.
Throw that in there until my wife starts like texting in. But ultimately, if you think about it in that kind of simplistic way, what we're doing is and it comes back to the point that you made at the top of the show, and also Manuel did last time around, communication. The basics is we want human interaction and we want to talk to each other, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. Thinking about when we kind of posted live on kind of LinkedIn a couple of days ago, actually one of the first people to actually kind of like the comment was a candidate that I'd worked with back in 2009 and ultimately had a really good connection with. Didn't kind of work together, didn't kind of place him anywhere, but even now, I always kind of look to see how he's doing, what he's up to, and those kind of relationships have been built out through conversation, really understanding each other, really kind of getting each other. And yes, we do unfortunately share a painful sporting connection, currently painful sporting connection. Yeah, absolutely. Just probably so anyone that knows me knows that I'm probably more into podcasts than I am into kind of reading books. But if you're looking at kind of business books around kind of culture and developing it, there's a great book on the All Blacks called Legacy, and I would definitely recommend that for anyone who's looking to build a team, build a culture, trying to become a better leader or a better manager, which I think we're all trying to do every day. That's just a top read, and I don't read often. I'll leave that to the better half, who can read about 5 books a week. That's
like Short Circuit. Do you remember that film Short Circuit, when he used to just read books, the robot fella? He used to just read books. Yeah, that's definitely not me either, to be fair. So it's a really good tip, actually. And I was going to talk. We spoke earlier about kind of the retention rate or the regrettable leavers, and the fact that you're ahead of your target as a business at the moment, which is absolutely fantastic. But is there anyone over your career that's kind of stuck out that you've lost and you think, there's one that got away there, or a few people that have got away? And actually, what did you learn from that experience in the sense of, right, we're going to make sure that we put this in place? Because you talked to me off air before about careers page that you've just developed, and you joke that you've turned into a bit of a kind of a UX person as well. But these elements are so important for EVP, as you talked about before, that actually some candidates that are coming to the website, that they're looking, at the careers page, they know what they're looking for. They're going to entice them in. So when you've got them, we want to keep that talent, don't we?
Yeah, and it's not live yet, Lee, so don't go there, people. It will be live. It will be live soon. It will be live soon.
That's your perfectionist part coming in, making sure that it's all perfect before it goes live.
It is. That's my evenings kind of spent. So I guess probably not a one person that's kind of got away, but I think generally over the kind of course of my career, it's you very early on, and I still do that now, where you think, oh, I've got the perfect candidate here, they're the perfect fit. This is exactly what the hiring manager is looking for, whether that's in-house, whether that's RPO, whether that's agency. That's a big focus of everyone. You think, right, got it nailed. And actually some of the big I guess kind of resets that I have is when you think you've got it nailed, and there's always that, yeah, but they're not. From a cultural perspective, I think actually from a blend in terms of my team, they may not be the best person. Yeah, you've got it 100% right in terms of ticking everything that we're kind of looking for, but there's still that gap there around kind of personality fit, cultural fit in the organisation, and everything else, which I think is so important, and it's even more important now in the world that we're in.
What's really interesting, come back specifically to you and your career so far, is that I'm a big advocate of Simon Sinek and some of the work that he's done, especially around why. And again, any viewers or listeners, if you haven't seen, just Google Simon Sinek and the TED talk he does on why. Start with why, and it's fascinating stuff. We've implemented that quite a lot actually in both of the businesses in our ethos. But actually coming to you in the sense of, going into a business, very, very established as the Cooperative Bank, RBS, big, massive organizations, and then having to kind of re-engineer or change or transform certain processes, or, let's be honest, most of the time, transformation and change is hearts and minds, isn't it? You mentioned about hiring managers, bringing in new technology, hiring managers that may say, do you know what? I've always done what it's always been all right with me, so I'm just going to continue doing that. How have you managed to kind of start to change and win them hearts and minds? I think there'd be really good some tips around that.
Yeah, so I think it's twofold really. So I absolutely, when I've gone in to teams or to join organizations, they're really, really super established. I do so many things well. I've got great people that work for them. So I think there's probably two elements. The first element probably more focused, on what I'd call is that external view, always looking for data, always looking at what the market is saying, always looking for intelligence. Really giving putting a structure around that. So we talk about a lot around kind of our RSPs, which are recruitment strategy plan documents that we build out for each vacancy. So we're almost going into every single briefing, so that this is what the market's telling us. We've got hiring managers that recruit fairly frequently, and some that recruit once every few years. So it's ever evolving and ever changing. So that use of data to really inform is critical. And I think the second thing is really, and I think this is it's probably downplayed or underplayed by a lot of people, is actually just really focusing on the recruitment team. They're your voice when you're not there. They're your voice when you're kind of not in meetings or on annual leave. They're your voice to candidates. They're your voice to hiring managers. So I think kudos to everyone in the recruitment industry at the moment for how we've dealt with all the change over the last year. Keep going, keep energized, keep pushing, because I think we have such an important role to play. And I don't you look at what's happened over the last year and COVID and changes. Actually, there's recruitment teams out there that have been staffing in NHS, have been staffing the kind of volunteering centres. Recruitment is front and centre of the growth, any growth in any industry in our country and globally. Getting that right is so important. But I think the biggest focus for me is really focusing on the talent acquisition team. Have you got the right people? Is the will there? Do they want to learn? Are they coachable? Are they really kind of brand ambassadors? If you think about any candidate, yes, they'll be looking online, they'll be looking at the careers pages and everything else. But the first time they'll interact with someone is the recruitment team. You have to really support your team, whether that's an in-house team, whether that's an RPO that you're partnered with, or an MSP that you're partnered with, or if it's an agency that you're working with. I treat everything as kind of an extension of the team and the world, and we're all in this kind of together as a collective. So I think that's the biggest focus for me is on when I go into an organisation is the team.
Yeah, no, I love it. It's brilliant advice. Well, we've got loads of questions coming in, so a couple more. I think Aaron's decided to write a book on LinkedIn, so I'll try and paraphrase. No offense, Aaron, but he talks about the human elements can either go either way: higher mentorship, support, gut feeling, that type of stuff. He actually asked, what sort of blend of workforce does it look like for you, Richard, in terms of how you're recruiting contractors compared to permanent candidates? Is there any trends on prediction of external workers, etc.? So just touching around the kind of dynamic really on that side of things, and also finishes off with saying, has COVID made a difference to the human element in the recruitment process?
Cool. So Aaron's got some really great kind of points there and great topics to cover. So thank you, Aaron, for your question. So I think first point around kind of mix, mainly perm. We've gone through a lot of organisational change over the last few years, which is, it's been tough and it's been kind of challenging. But when we look at mix, I would say that our kind of contractor workforce is kind of minimum now. But they're really important. So whenever any kind of contractors in there, it is, it's key hires to do with technology, to do with data, risk, anything regulatory. So we've got some really important, brilliant contractors that work for us. But the pool overall is very small. It is very much kind of perm focused, and we probably see that trend continuing.
Brilliant. And what about COVID side of things? Aaron just made the last point there about COVID. Has it made a difference to the human element in the recruitment process? Maybe I'm paraphrasing a little bit for Aaron here, but maybe what we've been finding is actually because we've gone virtual, do you lose an element of, we've hired, Phoenix 51 have actually hired 9 people since we started. We only started business in September, and all of them have been virtual. So we haven't met half of our staff base. We haven't even met them face to face. So do you think that there's an element there of kind of different flow points, discussion points, that sort of stuff that is lost because of that?
There absolutely is. I mean, I think that goes from not just from candidates when they're kind of coming in. I mean, I used to, I love when I'm interviewing people actually kind of the walk to the meeting room, or when you first kind of meet, because I think you find out a lot more about the general kind of discussion around that, talking to reception staff about how they've kind of treated them, etc. You're missing out on those elements at the moment, and I think those social skills are really important. But we're in a world now which is different and which is changing, and I think what we're trying to focus on, trying to be well, obviously it's mental health awareness week this week, and it's been a tough year, 18 months for everyone, and people are sometimes a bit zoomed out, a bit videoed out. So I think you've got to have kind of adaptable, the way you kind of manage your teams, and I think we do this quite well internally, is providing flexibility. Can it just be a call? Can you meet and go for a socially distanced walk or coffee? Can you interact with people in different ways? We've changed our kind of induction very quickly, as most organisations did, to for our contact centres, they're still obviously kind of face to face in some areas, or some business areas there are. But actually, what can we do virtually? We've got a brilliant training and development team that have supported the onboarding of new colleagues. But it's even more important that we get the basics right. Getting laptops, getting all the IT kind of set up on kind of day one. What does it look and feel like to join the organisation? As you said, I've got people in my team that have joined, and I've not physically kind of met them face to face.
You don't know.
It's so weird.
I was chatting to a client the other day, and we was like saying, actually, we don't even know how tall anyone is. I know it's such a weird thing, but it's true, isn't it? We don't know. Everyone's just sitting. And that's crazy. I must apologise. It was John actually who brought up the last point, not Aaron. So apologies for that. Elisa, also talks about the candidate commitment side. She describes that she's finding it tough now because technology has made it easier for people to kind of duck out of interviews, for want of a better expression. But actually, I don't know what your experience is on that. I think for me, I want people to duck out because ultimately it tests whether or not they actually want the opportunity. I've spent the last 10 years of my career talking to clients about don't chase the golden goose, right? Don't chase the golden egg. Like if they don't want it, don't chase them. Work with a talent that want to work with your business because they're the ones that are going to retain. But we've got an 82% retention rate using our technology across our clients. And actually, the reason why it's so high and so healthy is because of them types of key things. So I thought that's quite interesting around your regretted hires or your retention rates being so high as well.
Yeah, and look, it's a great point that Alyssa brought up there. So I think that kind of one thing that is really missing is and this goes back to the candidate commitment point that we were talking earlier on, is that natural deselection. Actually, do I really want this job? You may kind of feel like you want it because it might be kind of progression or more money or whatever your motivators are at that point as a candidate, but the reality might be so different. And actually, sometimes having to complete something online, having to commit to a presentation, having to commit to traveling and turning up somewhere and taking time off work, those kind of things that naturally deselect, we're not getting now. So that's where I think probably with most recruitment teams or most organizations are probably seeing an increase in terms of keeping candidates warm, having those conversations with people. And we don't always get it right. There will be there's people that kind of drop out and don't start, because I think I completely get it from a candidate side as well. There's not a lack of commitment there, but maybe sometimes it's I need to be working. I'm kind of out of work. I've got bills to pay. I've got these 3 or 4 things that people are talking to me about. I don't dare deselect from one of them because I might not get the other 3. This might be my least favorite, but ultimately I need to stay in the processes. So that deselection is definitely not there.
Totally. And again, that comes back to attitude. To me, anyway, it comes back to attitude of the candidate, right? Is that actually I'm going to stay in this process and really understand and find out if it's right for me and vice versa. Because I do think that sometimes clients or employers actually think it is a one-way process. I'm sure they don't, but sometimes it comes across like that. You will do everything that I want you to do, and then I will choose whether or not you're coming into my business. But actually, again, going back to AVP thing, I think a lot of people, certainly over the last couple of years, have started to realise, businesses have realised, actually, it's definitely a two-way thing. We're not just going to go on a date and then I choose whether or not I'm going to get a second date or not. It's a mutual choice, and it's the same with in the recruitment side. Actually, is this business right for me? Do I want to work for Phoenix 51? Do I want to work for the cooperative bank? Actually, I like their process. I like the way they treat. I like their values. They align to mine. It is a two-way process like that, isn't it, Richard?
Yeah, absolutely is. And I think you touched on kind of a number of points there, which are really kind of key, Lee. So, I think we've got a really strong EVP. So actually, we're kind of hitting the sweet spot, I think, in terms of what's happening in the world, in terms of waste, being ethical. Some of our kind of competitors have got, have said that they're not going to, work with fossil fuel businesses by 2030. Actually, we're already doing that now. That's something that we've kind of ingrained with us. We turn down business because of our kind of ethical policies. And I think there's a certain type of person that buys into that and wants to be involved in that, and it's really important. It's either really important to you or it's not. Back to your point about I think as an organization or as recruiters, you've got to take your ego aside. It's about being humble. It's about it is a two-way process. There is only one top of the tree in terms of organization that I'm thinking of, maybe Apple, that everyone would want to work for, or some different organizations. Everyone's got their organization out there, which would be the kind of golden ticket or the one that they would always want to work for.
I can think of two: Phoenix 51 and the Cooperative Bank.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought I was going to be a job offer there, Lee, but that's but no. Cooperative for me. I managed the RPO a few years ago. Left to manage other kind of clients, and then came back to the bank when I got very kindly kind of approached to kind of set up and work with the internal function, because those values really, I want my daughter to grow up in a world where, the values that the bank possess, I want 90% of organizations to embody. So, being diverse in terms of ideas and people, being really cooperative, listening to people, being a great citizen, all those kind of things are, are naturally really important to me. And I think that's why for me, the cooperative bank is kind of my apple or my Phoenix 51, because it is a great fit for me, because those are the values that I have, and candidates will be drawn to that or not.
No, completely agree. So, I mean, really popular today. So we've got a couple more. Questions that I want to go through, and I know that time is getting on, so I really apologise. But Tina mentions that she works in student employment service at the moment, and she tells the applicants and the candidates all the time to take a job, to get the foot in the front door, to show the employer what they can do. But actually, I suppose our question really is, how easy is that in reality? Is it easy to get your foot into the door and show employers what you can do?
I think it's a great point, and I think we'd all like to think it is easy, but I think any challenge around what that kind of internal mobility and journey looks like. It's all well and good kind of taking the first step in, but I think you're right. It does. Tina's right. It does show in terms of kind of attitude and commitment and what you want to do. But sometimes, you've got to think, actually, is that a job that I'm going to be then pigeonholed in or kind of stuck in, or actually is that, or is it a great opportunity which I know will lead on to what I ultimately do want to do, or what I kind of want to ultimately where I want to kind of go. And actually, we're in a recruitment industry where lots of people join it, and it isn't naturally something that at the careers day that someone would have brought up and want to kind of go into, but you kind of fall into it or go into it because you have a great experience, or because you really care about people and want to kind of help people. So I think it really depends on the organization, making sure if you do you do really, if you're going for that kind of first step in, and you're willing to kind of do that kind of starting point job, which are great stepping stones in an organization. We've got a strong talent succession pipeline in terms of even late last year when we changed our kind of CEO. It was our CFO that stepped up into the CEO role. We then had our CEO move into the CFO. So once you've gone through all those kind of talent moves and everyone else has moved around, ultimately it's probably someone, the gap will ultimately be the starting point or the entry point into the bank. So that's why it's important that we get that right as well.
I think it's a good point. We talked earlier about emerging talent and early careers and talent programs at that level. And actually, of course, it's really important to get a balance for recruiting throughout the structure of the organisation. But actually, if you can get that kind of that early careers point, that entry level point right, then you should be. And because of the values and beliefs, and you grow with the business, it should enable you to have future leaders of the business as well. And again, looking at that, okay, have we got programs in place that enable us to go into, is Lee a future leader, or is Richard a future leader, or Tina a future leader, and making that work. But I think showcasing the attitude and actually realizing that if it's not the right thing for you now, or you're not going to get the role, then go away and be better. Go do some volunteering, for example. Go and get some experience if you can away. Show that desire, and then go back and say, look, Richard, I did this. You advised me to do this, and I did this. And it actually brings me into a good point about feedback. One of the key things that we've built into our platform is automated feedback. So that actually, when you're looking at making sure that it's against the key behaviours, key competencies, key values, if you like, against what you're hiring for per job role across the organisation, you can actually get key feedback and data insights on that. And actually, to the EVP that we talked about earlier before, around making sure that people want to come to us and they've had a good experience. I can't tell you how many candidates or applicants have come away disappointed, but knowing that they've got fantastic feedback that they can go and improve. Is that something that you've also embedded, if you like, into your process? feedback for candidates, so they know the reasons why they haven't done so well or where their skills gaps are, but actually they can go again.
Yeah, and I think I mean, it's the number one. If you think about over the years in recruitment, it's probably the number one criticism of any recruiter, right? Is kind of feedback. And actually, if it's on the agency side, it's probably not the agency's fault. It probably is the business that's not providing it. But God, I mean, it has never been more important. It's different, and I think I've mentioned about kind of being authentic earlier, but our values in terms of kind of cooperative values in terms of treating people with respect and being colleagues. How could we could say that if we then not being? We have to be honest. We have to be transparent. I think it should be what everyone aspires to do, is provide really honest, really great feedback. It simply is not good enough to just say, oh yeah, pip to the post, number 2. It's just it's lazy recruiting. Ultimately, business and leaders need to be held accountable. Candidate feedback, candidate journey. You think about. I know a few of your guests have been on from financial services. You think about ultimately candidates that we're kind of dealing with on a day-to-day basis could easily be, and hopefully be cooperative kind of bank account holders. So we've got to have that in mind.
They turn into consumers.
That in mind as well.
Yeah. So
absolutely.
They're almost consumers as well. I remember talking to a huge telecommunications broadband provider. You guys and girls and can work out who that might be. And they said that they assess 22,000 people a year to come into their business, and they have no mechanism at all to showcase feedback. And basically, it was hurting their consumer brand or the consumer business, because individuals would go back, they'd talk to their parents or whatever, and they'd say, "Oh, I want to switch that off now because they didn't treat my son or my daughter very well, whatever it is, via their early careers program." So it does have a knock-on effect, and them sorts of things, again, coming back to that whole talent waste piece, them sorts of things are so difficult to monitor. You won't know exactly if that consumer or that customer has left because of that experience. So you've got to make sure that the experience that you're providing to the applicants, to the candidates, to the talent pool is one of first class. Because if it isn't, it could come back and hurt you somewhere else. At the end of the day, it's money, isn't it? At the end of the day, it comes back to it hurts you financially.
Well, easily. You can draw the links there, and I'm sure every organisation would. But I think, when we're someone might go away, they might get a job elsewhere, and actually now they're perfect for us. But actually, God, we didn't give them feedback, 2-3 years ago. People don't forget that. And I guess to the other point around kind of talent waste, it's really important that you have honest conversations throughout that kind of performance cycle as well, internally, once they're in the business. Because if you're not honest, we can provide honest feedback in terms of shortfalls, but then actually if there's if we bring someone in and we know there's still gaps in terms of their career journey or what we want them to develop because we've hired on cultural fit rather than skills, we bring them in, and then ultimately there isn't a mechanism there to give them the skills they need to be successful. Totally. They will leave anyway, right?
Totally. So, yeah, 100%. And it's interesting actually, isn't it? Because you look at kind of that journey after the recruitment phase, if you like, so that onboarding part, and then their employee journey. And then, again, should we be continuously assessing our staff and continuously talking and trying to develop? Of course we should be. But again, what mechanisms have we got? How do we know? Are we still doing 1-year appraisals, or is it constant? Is it quarterly appraisals? Do appraisals even exist? Are they even just dated now? And actually, should we be constantly in communication and talking and looking and working around the data that we've got around the not the employees or performance, but actually their behaviours and their skill set whilst we're developing them? Because surely, if we're going to use the data and the insights on the recruitment side, surely we've got to be using the same data and insights for the employee journey, haven't we?
God, absolutely. And I think when you're thinking about kind of colleagues and progression, you've got to take that pride as a leader or as a manager of people that actually I'm kind of the leader or manager or whatever title is kind of now. I'm here to support every individual that works for me, because yes, we've got to get work done, we've got deadlines, we've got things that we want to achieve, but actually that every single individual in every single team has got their own wants, desires, career path, things that they want to learn. And I think we're as a leader, you're a facilitator of that, so you can only facilitate that through honest, transparent conversations. And that might be someone leaving the business, but actually when they do leave, it isn't because you've not been there, you've not been supportive, the opportunity maybe is not there. It may just be a timing thing. So I think as a leader, you need to take pride in that. And yes, HR, talent, recruitment, all plays a big part in that. But everyone has a part to play in that in terms of leadership of management of people.
So I completely agree. I mean, utilizing the tool to be able to, like our platform, for example, Think 51, to be able to assess live environments, to be able to assess that, not assessing their performance, but you're actually assessing their behavior so that we can develop, so we can see them insights, so we can give them what they want, that development part. Why would they want to leave? Why would they go for an extra 3, 4, 5 grand somewhere else when actually they're getting the actual development that they need against their key behaviors and competencies? I mean, it's phenomenal development. So being able to utilize I completely agree, completely.
No one should come to their year-end appraisal, monthly appraisal, whatever you want to call it, and the conversation be a shock. Yeah. If it is, then that is down to you as a leader or as a manager of people, that you have not been honest, transparent, authentic with how you're kind of managing your staff or functional people. So totally. Yes, external feedback to candidates is a must, and no organization is perfect there or gets it right. But I think you've got to have the desire to do that and to get it right, and to hold each other accountable for that. So we hold hiring managers accountable, they'll hold us accountable if things aren't passed on correctly or quickly enough. So there's a joint accountability there. But when it comes to managing people, be authentic, be honest, be transparent, all those things. Just think about, actually, if it was a family member of yours, how would you want them to be treated? Yeah. And I think honesty is the way forward.
Would they say that honesty is the best policy? I'm sure that's been said many, many times. Well, look, we have had a phenomenal. I mean, I could talk to you for another 2 hours, and I'm sure our viewers and listeners could as well. I've got 2 more questions because I want to make sure that I get through the last couple of questions. Donald asks, sure, what is the best advice for interacting with people that have an awful personality or poor professional attributes? So maybe where Donald's coming from is, people that can't interact very well, or they're not professional. What's the advice from you, Richard, to be able to develop them individuals, or actually just to get on with them?
I think it's hard. It's hard, right? So we're in an industry where we're talking to people all day long, and 99% of the people you absolutely love, build great rapport with. There's always going to be, everyone's different. There's always going to be people that you don't get on well with, or don't build that rapport with. And I think sometimes you need to reflect and take the emotion out of it. Take your, they might support a different team that wear red and white. You've got to take the emotion out of that. And yeah, I think we've given it away now who we support, but take the emotion out of it. And what I would say is, if you've got awful kind of personalities aren't really kind of all those kind of things we spoke about, kind of cultural fit and importance, you need to be honest with them and talk to them. And it's a tough conversation. So one of my first ever candidates that I met in the recruitment industry came in to meet me for a kind of a briefing, and was due to go out to interview that kind of afternoon. So it was a prep, and came in, just come from the gym, in gym gear, was planning on going to the interview in a custody bank in Canary Wharf in gym gear. And this is going back to 2007-8 when dress down wasn't really a thing, and dressing for your day wasn't really a thing. So you have to be honest. You have to be honest with people, because otherwise you're doing them a disservice. And I think ultimately people then will come back to you and say, yes, you may not have found that job for me, or you may not have, I may not be working for you now, but actually I've taken that piece of advice. It's hard. We're in an environment where social skills and social interaction has changed so much over the last few years, and especially throughout my kind of working career. And honesty and transparency back to people is really important. I think that was that Donald that asked that question.
Yeah, it was Donald. Yeah, exactly. I think
great question.
Yeah, it was a difficult one. Look, I'm going to finish off now, Richard, with Gary's question. Gary simply says, what do you think about organisations that actually allow talent waste because they believe a new broom will sweep clean? And again, I think that we just want to put some context around it. When we started talking at the beginning of the show, Richard, you talked about regrettable waste, and obviously my gambit around talent waste is always about people that we don't want to leave the business. But I mean, Gary's talking about in a little way to say actually it's fine to let people go because actually out with the old, in with the new, almost is what Gary's saying. Do you still think that exists, and do you still think that's healthy or unhealthy?
I mean, it probably does still exist, if I'm honestly. So it's a great point, Gary, that you asked there, and I think it's an interesting one. I think it's a really expensive way to do business. Very expensive. If you've got loads of cash to burn, and ultimately, you'll want to take a lot of time with hiring people, knowing that, and training people and developing them, knowing that 2 months later they're going to be working for a competitor, then that's the way forward.
Completely.
But I mean, I'd be surprised if most organisations looked at that as a positive. If not, I guess it depends on the industry and what your kind of approach is as a business. But I think if you're looking to be around for a long time as an organisation, you need great people to stay with you for a long time.
100%, and again, that's how you grow that culture in the first place, isn't it? You'll never get to that EVP, or you'll never get to a culture of inclusivity and development if you're always sweeping clean. And I've just put some numbers on that. We had the wonderful John Hull on the Talent Waste Show, 3rd episode. You can still get it on Spotify. They've done some analysis within the nationwide that basically suggests for every 1 percentage point costs £100,000. So for every 1% of staff leaving, £100,000 cost. If you work out on the Office of National Statistics, even taking the 30% turnover in year one on a business that have hired 100 people, CIPD stating £12,000 per bad hire, plus all of their hidden costs that you don't even see, you're talking over 350, 360, 70, 80 grand a year just on that. So like I completely agree, it's a very, very expensive way. And actually, if we invested in some technology, if we invested in some development, if we invested in some people to actually coach and develop, you could probably save at least 70% of that back into your bottom line, and actually develop a better EVP and a better working environment by doing it the other way. So apologies to John or to Nationwide if we've kind of taken any of that 1%, but I'm sure they've taken people from us as well, and it's a great business. For sure. Well, look, on that note, Richard, I've had some comments on here. I can't read them out. I think one person says hush, but don't tell anyone else. But this has been the best show so far. So that's probably the biggest compliment that can be paid. Richard, you've been an absolute superstar. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope we can stay in touch and get you back on in one of our future shows when we complete our mission. And to everybody watching and of course listening, you can catch up on YouTube. You can catch up on Spotify as a podcast version as well. Go and tell your friends. Go and tell your family. We are on a mission to find out whether talent waste actually exists. And Richard today has provided us with some key information to suggest, do you know what? It does exist, and we are on the right mission. Thank you ever so much, Richard.
Thanks, Lee. Really appreciate it.